Hey friends, this is Allison Steele, and you're listening to Unravel with Allison, a show where I take a concept that's got me in knots, and we unravel it together. Thanks for being here. Last episode, we talked a lot about debt management and how I make that trade-off as a priority to getting what I want financially. I don't have the discipline to save up money, but I do have the discipline to stay out of trouble. So that's why I'm comfortable in an area of debt management and trusting that I know I'll take care of it, because I always have. So with debt and debits come credits. And it's pretty important for us on a national scale right now, credibility in general. Is that real? Is that true? Check your sources. Where did that come from? Where did you hear that? Cite your sources. Show your proof. Collectively, this is a vibe that everybody feels is important. Spreading misinformation is dangerous. If you don't pay attention to what you believe and you don't pay attention to what you read and you're just consuming all of this stuff that other people tell you, there's a lot of stuff that you're unable to source yourself. You can't go out and interview people. You have to rely on others to do that and then to report back to you. So at first you decide where to get your information from. There are certain news sites that most people will like, I will never turn that channel on. And then there are other news sites that they default to and only pay attention to. And then there's stuff on TikTok that will literally never ever make it to that mainstream. Again, claiming false information. But some of that is even just the spark of an idea. But if someone can see how that leads down a bad path, they'll cover and quiet the story in order to maintain either neutrality or truth. But again, truth is always variable. And we're just layered with one truth after another. So I'm in a world where I hear truth, I see the truth, and I understand it for what it is. I consider the source when I get information in a way that I can look at somebody and hear it and say, I see how you feel that way because I can see how you got there, especially if you just told me and I took the time to actually sit with you and experience that journey with you. I really do have a sense for what you're saying. I have a sense for what you're feeling. Often enough, we don't take that time with each other to sort it out. But when you do, you have this exposure that you can identify within your body of what feels right and wrong. And that signal isn't always going to give you the right answer of, yes, that's right, yes, that's wrong, because my body told me so. Your body's going to tell you what's right and wrong based on your beliefs, not based on what you're hearing. If something hammers at your belief system, that's going to send a jolt through your body. And sometimes it's just a verbal, instantaneous reaction because you know what you know and you know how you know it. And if you can credit yourself and back it up, you're very comfortable spouting it out. I'm not sure that's helping us collectively either. I'm one that's never really focused on truth. I'm not in the interest of changing anybody's mind or making anybody think different or feel different. I'm sharing my ideas and my conversations. And I appreciate feedback and insight that is born of this. When I consider credit, the first thing I think about is money. So a definition for credit, in the money sense, would be to add money to an account. So we'll close this off into a section called the deposits. To add money to an account. To credit your account. If you have a kid that has a lunch money account, you can load their card from your website and then they can use it during lunch in school. It's like a reserve in that dynamic. But when it comes to knowledge, and we get those questions, where did you hear that? How do you know this? Who told you that? Why do you believe this? I have a very open belief system where the truth and right isn't as important as what are we creating together and how does that feel? And if we can shift together, how does that feel? So when I read something that I like, I bank it. I know what I felt when I heard it or I read it, and I express the feeling. I don't express the knowledge. I mean, somebody was recently asking about a celebrity history dynamic, and I was like, oh yeah, they dated, and this happened, and that happened, blah, 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 blah. Like, how do you know all that? And I'm like, actually, I don't even remember if that's true. I'm like, I never actually looked into that, but that's the vibe that I catch when we talk about this relationship. That's what I remember from what I've read, but I don't remember actually reading those exact words. It's also been about 10 years since this couple was a couple, and the news isn't relevant or important, but I was very comfortable repeating what I felt I exactly knew. I looked it up later and I was right. Okay, but when I was growing up, my brother had an MP3 player and he downloaded the music onto it and then he got a new one and I got to use his old one. I didn't know how to put music onto anything. I didn't know what I was doing. I just got to listen to the music that he listened to on that device. Maybe 15 songs it was able to hold. And one of those songs was Sex and Candy. And I remember listening to it and it like scrolls by so you can read the song title and the artist. And so I'd be in the back seat, cruising down the road, having my headphones in and just listening to this. And I would watch as every song came across. And you get to learn all of these songs as you hear them on repeat because they're the only ones that you can listen to. This little device, Marcy's Playground, wasn't anywhere in there. The song was Sex and Candy and the artist was under Green Day. Given my exposure at such a high level of repetitiveness too, because I listened to that thing constantly, that was the only truth that I knew. And I had no way to look it up and I didn't care at all about the answer. But it came up. The song came on at a family event. My uncle asks who sings this song, and I told him I know. And I said it was Green Day, and he told me I was wrong and he knows better. And I was very fussy about that because I knew better, because I look at it every single day about 20 times a day. I was pretty sure I was right. And I can show you. I have it right in front of me. I can show you how I'm right. And all he could say was that I was wrong and he knows better. And he was right. We didn't have Google at our fingertips at that time, but I got shut down. And I eventually, like everybody else was agreeing with him, it was clear that I was wrong. And I was annoyed by it because how am I supposed to know? And are both things true? I didn't know. I only knew what I knew based on what was in front of me. So silly story to look back on now. But I still have a bad memory on top of being unsure of the information that I'm constantly exposed to. See, the thing is, me and anybody else can only offer what we know. You have to rely on, 1, your memory, and 2, your exposure. So if you have poor memory or very little exposure, consider your credibility of what you know to be true, that it might not be, and it's okay to expose yourself to more, to explore. I can only offer what I know, and I have a terrible memory, so I don't really care that I can't give you the exact right answers to the information that I found out and where I found it. I can only offer you my curiosities about the platform that I'm pretty sure I know enough about. So I can say, hey, I read this article and it said something like A, B, and C. What do you think about that? That's how I prompt a conversation. It's not, I heard this. Do you think this is right? I heard this. Do you think this is wrong? Because I don't really care if it's right or wrong. In a conversation between two people that didn't have their hands in it isn't going to really, we're not here to solve it. When the media gives you information, it's supposed to be unbiased so that you can form your own opinion. That's what true news is supposed to be. It's supposed to let you form your own opinion. So I like talking about those opinions and what they mean, not whether or not they're true, but that this exists in our field. How do you feel about that? Even if I don't have all of my details right, it's still a good launch pad to start the conversation. Another bubble of credit is establishment. As a noun, credit is an entry recording of a sum received, listed on the right-hand side or column of an account. Record keeping systems. Systematic authority. This is the stuff we do because other people say we have to do it. This is the stuff we do to keep ourselves in order. This is what we do to keep our monies in order. We keep it ledger. You know, I was just talking to one of my buddies today about playing the games. We see how we want to live in life and we act in such a way. And then there's this weird pushback from other areas where you can see we're not playing their game. And there's frustration, that maybe also some resentment in there that starts to bubble. When it exposes itself, it's really confusing because I really am focused on playing my game. I'll do all these other things and have a good time and learn along the way and participate with people around me. But ultimately, I do what I do for me and mine, just as everybody else does too. And I can still make space for you and yours. But the safety and security of me and mine are primary. I had to take an accounting class once and I was not very good at it. I'm not great with numbers and I have a poor memory. And I couldn't grasp the debits and credits in the accounts. Like, it was very confusing to me which side goes on which side and what is labeled as such for each. It seems very clear as day to basically everybody in the class, and I'm the one that's confused by it. And I'm actually reading the books and I'm actually trying. I'm putting the effort in, and I'm not one who's had to study much in the past. That class really put me through it. I remember taking a test, and I didn't do very well on it. And as we were reviewing the test, we got to a certain question that I had gotten wrong. And before he gives us the answer, he says, if you got this one wrong, you might just want to drop the class now because you obviously don't get it. Like, this is the easy one that everybody should have gotten. What's the answer? And everybody calls it out. And it was literally just like debits or credits was the answer. And I got it wrong because I feel like I see the world backwards. So when I look at debits and credits, it doesn't really make sense to me, even when I'm the one like producing the ledger. I don't see value in the same way that other people do. Even when it comes to money, I don't get it. I don't get it at all. But to keep this record keeping, it establishes authority, and not in a bad way of like fight the man, but just in the actuality of like you're recording something and it matters for something else. And it's written this exact way on purpose, so it looks the same for everybody. To cover the word again, credibility. Credibility itself is the quality of being trusted and believed in. That's why I'm bringing up trust and belief so much, because I have to break down the word credibility to credit so we can actually identify what that means. The quality of being trusted and believed in based on your credit. The ability to be credible. And that's why we had to look at what credit means. So we've already got those two areas covered of depositing, dropping information in, and what that looks like and how that feels. depositing money into accounts, depositing knowledge into conversation. You can only offer what you know. And then the establishment part, again, is this money recording. Sum received, listed on the ledger. It's credible because it's exact. But when you're depositing knowledge, conversation, I keep bringing up that you can only offer what you know. But when you're adding money to an account, if the value of money is taken away and the value of knowledge is dropped in, if you're adding knowledge to an account, you have to know what the account is for and what the purpose of it is to deposit appropriately. You have to know what's already in the pool to be able to dip into it and to participate with it. Into the pool really does bring me into the next stage pretty well, because this is another noun. It's the ability of a customer to obtain goods or services before payment, based on the trust that payment will be made in the future. This is why we have credit scores. It's reliability. We're going to credit this money. We're going to give you this for nothing, but we think it'll be something eventually. Being good at debt management means having a good credit score so you can maintain your credit. The credit system is pretty much garbage, honestly, and if you've had to battle it or really focused on what it takes to make it good, you'll see that it's a garbage system. The system is set up to see if you're reliable. Your score is referenced based on reliability. So if somebody's going to give you money, they're going to check your track record. That score is supposed to be a representation of your track record. When my credit score gets checked, my credit goes down. So if you even consider this exchange, you're kind of already punished for it. It makes you look bad by opting into the potential. And then when you do get a loan and you do pay something off, when that loan is paid off, even if it was perfect timing and everything was ideal, you should get bonus points for that. That should be extra credit when you do everything exactly the right way. But instead, you're closing a line of credit. So your credit score goes down. When you do all the right things, your credit score goes down. And then there's a fun little balance of percentages based off of what you're able to take versus what you've taken. So if you're looking at a credit card and you have a $5,000 limit, but you've only have a $1,000 balance, that's a comfortable look. So the people who are looking at your credit scores, they're going to see that dynamic and say like, okay, they're not going to overdo it. But if you have everything maxed out entirely, that brings your score down. When that ratio diminishes, when that ratio is thrown off, you don't look reliable. You look like a liability. When you take that into account, you don't get to play these games. Your credit score is set up to see if you're reliable. That's what they're checking on. Are you reliable? Every time I hear reliability, I immediately think of dependability. Both technically have the same meanings to the words, so I made up my own, and they give me a better sense of understanding, and I'm going to share them with you. So with credit scores, checking to see if you're reliable, if you're relevant in this game that we're playing. Are you relevant? Are you going to add to our system? Or are you going to take from us? And if you're going to add to our system and play our game, you have to have a good score to start. This just means adhering to your contract, adhering to your monthly payments, making your payments on time, making them consistently, doing all the things that you're supposed to do based on what you're contracted. If you're going to pay it month after month after month, you are considered reliable. Reliability to me is like a relay race, where everyone has their own specialty. Everyone has their own area of precision. Everyone has their own area that they're responsible for. And you take it and run. And when it's time for you to be responsible, have your hand ready to take it and run. When it's your turn, be ready for that baton. Be in position to take off and do what you're supposed to do. That is being reliable. Knowing what you're supposed to do and being ready to do it. When it's handed to you, you take off with it. You do what you're supposed to do and then hand it back off. You handle it when it's handed to you. You know your role. It's a structure, and it's a race. I don't like playing with credit scores. I don't like playing with debt. I don't like doing all this stuff. I wish we didn't have to deal with any of it. But honestly, if I have to play the game, if I have to see this race, I will look at how to play it, and I'll realize this isn't a game that I want to be playing, but it's going to get me to do the things that I want to be doing. So I'm going to know and learn how to play the game so I can capitalize on that. When I talk about adding to an account, adding to the pool of knowledge, adding to the conversational flow, the mental is our water. The physical earth plane, the money, the exchange, the physical value, that is your structure. That is your race. That is not a game that I want to be playing. The water, the flow, that's dependability. And I like being a dependable person more than I like being held to the standard of reliability. Dependability means that you don't have to handle the same situation the same every single time. It means you put yourself first and decide whether or not you're able to do what it is you want to do. You can say that depends. Note your boundaries and see if it works for you. That depends is still being dependable. Even if you don't opt into it and you're not technically reliable, you're not being handed off the next thing, you're not taking care of your leg of the race. In my world, that's still dependability because it depends on whether or not I'm able to do it. I don't mind setting myself up for situations that require reliability. If I know what the rules are, I'll play the game. And that's why structure and authority used to be a very big sense of comfort for me, is because I always know what I'm getting myself into. When there's laws and websites that can clearly document what is right and what is wrong, it was a safety zone. It was a comfort because it all makes sense, because it's all right in your face and right in front of you. It's reliable. If I need to go look it up, it's right there. It's there when I need it. But technically, if the information's not even credible, then is it dependable? When it comes to people exchange, this dependability is hard for me because most of my circles require reliability. Most of my groups and family expect reliability. They expect consistency and structure and have a set idea of a way that a relationship is supposed to be. Sometimes I have family members that are very straightforward with this. It's like this because, or you hurt me this way because, or you helped me this way because. We're passing it around the circle. We're just passing the batons. That's fine if you can get in the deep end with it. If you can travel to dependability while still realizing the importance of reliability, you can make waves and still succeed together. You have to decide about the dependability. Is it right for you and the other people that are involved? If there's a race going on and I have the ability to sign up for it, whether or not I sign up for it, if my body's not ready for it, I will not be a success in that scenario. So if I'm not ready to do something or I'm not prepared for something in such a way that when I show up, if you need me to show up a certain way and I'm unable to do that, I will choose to not do that. I'll sit the day out and that'll be okay for me. I offer dependability. I say, I'll come sit with you in court. Do you need me to show up for you? Can I show up for you in this way? I like that it's not a great scenario, but I'm willing to support you still. I don't know how to in certain situations, especially in ones like law and courts. I don't know what to do in those scenarios. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how to help, but I can remind you that you don't have to be alone. I will get in that water with you, so you don't have to stay there by yourself. If you're in the deep end, you don't have to be there alone. That's what I'm able to offer, which isn't much for some people. That's fine. I said, I will come with you. I will be there with you. I will participate with you. When a family member passed away and they had to go through all the stuff, I offered, I can show up and help go through some stuff with you. We can pack and unload together. You don't have to do this alone. Now, see, some people think that is me being polite. That is me being a people pleaser. That's me seeing a need and filling a need. That is not something I actually want to do out of the bottom of my heart, but it kind of looks like the right thing to do, so that's why I'm offering it. And it's usually met with like these, no, you don't have to do that. Like, well, I'm not offering because I feel like I have to. I'm offering because I don't know what else to do. And that's my comfort zone. Being uncomfortable with other people is comforting for me. I like when people don't have to go through this stuff alone. I like when I don't have to go through this stuff alone. I'm comfortable doing stuff alone, but I don't like asking for help. But if somebody offers, I'm comfortable accepting help. So when that dynamic is taken into account, it's like, what is her motive? My motive is to love you and I will be there with you. And I want to do that and I'm comfortable with that. But I'm not offered many areas and situations to behave that way or to be that person. I can only offer it up. But nobody asks for stuff like that. With me, you're welcome to. And I can't always come with or opt in. But when I can, I do. And when I care, I really want to. It's hard feeling like a dependable person in a reliable world. In another world of credit, we have the public acknowledgement of someone as a participant. You know, the highlight reel, credits at the end of the movie, name dropping during a song. I tell a lot of stories about other people, and I don't have their permissions. I typically don't credit people in my stories because it's not necessary to expose them for you to understand my perspective. If I gave people full credit for our scenarios together, they'd only get it from my perspective, which isn't fair to them. I don't know if they'd have the same ones, and I definitely don't know if they'd be comfortable with me name dropping after we haven't seen each other since elementary school. I'm just telling stories. I'm sharing my side. I'm sharing my sight, not sharing my side. It's never a me against anybody else kind of thing. There are artists that I've definitely given credit to, authors whose books I've referenced. I offer that to you so you can look at it for yourself. Not because I'm right and because this person said so is why, but just that if it was cool enough for me to check out and want to share, I'm going to go ahead and name drop that and share that information with you. Not for credibility reasons, not because it makes me right, but to offer you a resource because that was my source. And that's how I got this information, or that platform sprung this idea. But I'm acknowledging it. I'm highlighting it as a participant in my story. Even if it's just a book, I'm highlighting it as a participant because it helped me get to do what I'm doing right now. I also have this thing where I don't like being noticed. I don't like putting my name on stuff if I can't stand behind it. But also when I was a general manager the first time and my name went up on the door, I loved that credibility. I loved seeing my name and I loved having that responsibility. Not because I finally made it and I was important, but I would walk in the doors to work and be like, that's nice. This is mine. Let's do it. It had a sense of ownership. It wasn't my store. It wasn't my company. It wasn't my business. It was my job. And I used to get a real big sense of self-worth out of my job. Again, back to those systems. When there were systems in place and you followed them exactly and you got perfect results, that's great. I even helped develop and streamline these systems to make them better and easier. I had fun with these systems at work. I liked having the credibility at work. And I was comfortable with my name on the door. But I'd also been acting as if my name was already on the door for years before that. My management team gave me this sense of ownership that when I was the manager on duty, it was my store. Run it how you'd run it if it was your store. You're still going to have to answer for the company and you're general manager. But when you're the top dog, be the top dog. Back in 2014, I got married. And it happened pretty fast. Like we were together for a couple of years. She went to boot camp, and when she came home, we got engaged. And we got married less than a month later. Before boot camp, we were working out a lot together. We went to the gym all the time, and she had a special interest in MMA. And she was very active and involved in her local MMA gym. I was going to school for hospitality management and meeting and event planning. So like the Super Bowl party, she wanted to go to the Super Bowl party with everybody at her gym. And that's where I had my first exposure to these folks. Early 2014, we go to somebody's house for a Super Bowl party, and I'm exposed to this group. And we hit it off really well. Good guys running the gym. And they have big ideas and big developments. So we keep in touch. I explain to them what I'm doing in school, offer my support. If they do start to develop events, I would love to participate. So that starts to actually happen. The owner of the gym is the one that's coordinating the event. So he and I get in touch. We're having weekly meetings. I'm helping keep him on track, supporting the development, tracking everything from participants to waivers to ticket sales to like making sure there's an ambulance on site. Like we did everything together. And as this was all happening, my partner left for boot camp. So I was really all in on this event. I was still working, but this was my primary project. So even though we met early in the year, the MMA event was in September. And this lined up with when my partner came home from boot camp. That was just the luck of it. It wasn't planned or set up that way. He set up that's what he wanted for his gym, and that's what I opted into. And that just happened to be the timeline of her getting in and out of boot camp. So when she's home, she gets to come to this event and see what we've put together. And I'm ringside at the event. Like up to that point, one of the coolest things I've done. It was such a big day for me. And I could not believe, like, when you're doing events and production and stuff, when you finally get to the it's happening thing, and it starts and it goes well, there is nothing cooler than stepping back and looking around at everybody enjoying themselves around you and like, oh, I cannot believe we made this. I can't believe we put this together. I can't believe we did this. I can't believe we pulled it off. Even though I can because we work so hard to do it, but it's just this whole thing of like, look at the magic that we created. I was grinning ear to ear all night. I was on top of the world. I was a little anxious, but I loved it. And I was so proud of what we did together. So at the end of the show, the owner of the gym, the promoter of the event, the orchestrator of this whole thing, gives a closing speech. You know, thanks for coming out tonight, blah, 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 blah. Couldn't have done it without A, B, and C. And he starts to name some real specific events and real specific people about, couldn't have done this without you, this, and that. And it really did hurt my pride a little bit that I wasn't mentioned in that speech. Especially because at the end, he looked down at me. We both share a big smile, and he goes, you know what? There's also one girl I forgot to mention. Important girl, and none of this could be done without her. And he thanks his mom. And I'm just like, damn. Okay, I don't need the credit, and I don't like being pointed out, and I don't like being noticed. So why did it hurt my feelings when that happened? Sometimes I think that stuff means more to me than it does to other people. I forget that. It's okay. It's okay for it to mean more to me than it does to them in certain areas. And for his career, I will not be around. We're not going to be doing this forever. It was a one-time thing with me. And I made it bigger than it was because it was big for me. And I don't need credit. I don't need called out for that. I don't need my name on that event. It's not what I am. It's not who I am. And it's not what I'm going to continue doing. But I did have fun doing it. And it's okay that I didn't get the credit. And I dwelled on it for a while, honestly. Like after it happened, it made me really sad for a good stretch.
but it really did hit at some underlying self-worth issues. Feeling like I'm not good enough, like I'm not a worthy participant, like I'm not worth the highlight. So that night, after the event wraps up, we go to a friend's house. This wasn't like a mutual friend. This was their best friend growing up. It was her house, and we went over there for a game night after the event. Granted, I put all of this effort into this event for so long. The week of the event was absolutely insane. The event was in the evening, and once that wrapped, I wanted to go home, shower, and call it a night. But since my partner was just back from boot camp, she wanted me there to go explore her world with her, go visit her friends with me by her side. She explained it that she wanted to share the time together that we did have. I was willing to sacrifice a little bit of sleep, went home, took a shower, threw on some PJs. She's like, come on, man, we're going over to my friends. Can you at least throw on some jeans or something? And she used to never call out my outfits or have anything to say about anything. And after that self-worth stuff, it hit my pride again. And I'm like, I don't know how to be good enough for anybody right now. I'm just going to keep doing what everybody tells me to, keep showing up, keep trying to have a good time. But I'm exhausted. My heart's a little hurt. And we're going to these friends who we aren't friends. We're not mutual friends. They are friends, and I show up sometimes. And even when I tried to be a friend, it was still clear that this friendship was built on so many layers that I can't see it, and I'm not invited to it. There's too many inside jokes for me to identify a comfort level there. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm sitting here like you guys would have a much better time if I wasn't here, and I would feel much better if I wasn't here. But I stayed and played the games. We were going to have a campfire that night out in the backyard. That didn't happen because it was raining. And during one of the games, it was like a charades kind of deal. And on one of the pieces that I pulled out and read, it was an engagement request. In that moment, she was asking me to marry her. And I smiled. I did what people do when they get engagement requests. I engaged. And I really wasn't in a headspace to be making a decision like that. I wasn't in a headspace to be asked a question like that. But our time was short together. And it was important for her to do with me, obviously, with her friends around. She wanted to share that with everybody. And that was her window of time to be able to do that, given the scenario that we were in. I was reliable with her, and I was dependable with the MMA group. I was welcomed by her friends, but I didn't feel alive like I did when I was working towards something different. But when I worked towards what I wanted and felt slighted, and my self-worth was wonky, and I was exhausted and tired, and somebody loved me enough to marry me, to want me to marry them, it was an easy answer. In that moment, it was an easy answer. And it initiated a vortex that went haywire for the next 6 months. We were married within 20 days, and we were separated within 6 months. And honestly, trying to do a same-sex annulment in Ohio, for many reasons, an annulment made sense to me. So that's how I first tried to legalize our separation. And I got pushed back from the county. And then when I moved to a different county, just filed for divorce and had to go through with that. But being burned by that first county and not really understanding, there was a level of fairness that was not going to be met because we were a same-sex couple. So we did get divorced years later. But the marriage itself was only for a few months. And this was the scenario that it was born under. Ultimately, it's not important to me where credit comes from, what credibility is, really anything about credit when it comes to money and structure, when it comes to systems and authorities, and you have to do this, and you should be doing that, and it must be this way, or else it doesn't count. In school, I get that. Cite your sources, share your material. That makes sense. But your credibility is the ability to credit. And we took all those definitions and kind of put them into other words, to highlight, to deposit, and to establish. Reliability and dependability were mixed in there too, but we'll just call that area emotion, the ability to emote, where you choose or try to balance that relationship between the structure and the flow. You have the flow, the highlight, the deposit, and the establishment. And you have the ability to credit in all of those ways. You have the ability to publicly acknowledge someone as a participant. You have the ability to add to an account. You have the ability to establish structure and maintain systems. And that final one, the ability of a customer to obtain goods or services before payment based on the trust that payment will be made in the future. Trust is not measurable. I can't even call it variable. If the customer is obtaining goods and services before payment, that means there's an expectation of them. And you have the ability to set up those relationships. So when you focus on credit and credibility, it's important to acknowledge my favorite term, inherent differential value. Your natural value system, what you decide is worthy and unworthy, When you hear it, do you know it as true? There's some stuff that I hear that I think is absolutely off the walls, like telling me that Sex and Candy isn't by Green Day. That threw me. That was not a credible person I was getting information of based on the information that I knew. And they were right. And I was very much wrong. Even though all of my information was very much right in front of my face, it didn't mean it was factual or accurate or helpful. Just that it was accessible, and that was all my exposure was. So moving forward, when you consider credit and exposure and value exchange, money is the least important in that realm to me. But instead of what does it mean and are you right, what are we doing here and what else can we do? And how do we feel about it? And also be okay with your level of credit. And if you're not okay with it, go ahead and adjust it. Because I'm one of those people that I don't like being told I'm stupid or that I'm uninformed or that I don't know what I'm talking about. Even though it may be true in some different areas, I don't like being called out for those reasons. I don't like being told to prove myself or to cite my sources. But I don't owe it to you. You see how you feel about it. See if that sounds right, and then you go look into it for yourself if you care enough. And if you don't care enough to look into it for yourself, don't put the energy into calling me out for what I have to share. Because I know my ideas are off the wall, but I have a lot of fun with them. Off the wall. We're getting into another story here. I'm going to close with this. My kids were in the living room, and I had my phone out. The sunlight was shining in through the window and reflecting off of my phone. My kids are 3 and 5, and they were acting like cats to a laser pointer, cracking up, running all over the house, trying to grab this reflection, this white orb, this white light. And they're considering, they're talking to it as if it's a real thing. Come back here. Get over here. Where's it going? Mom, why won't it play with us? They're talking to me as if this is a real life entity that they are participating with. Not that they think it's an alien or a light being or anything like that, but just like the kid is personifying this exposure. There's something happening there. So I was having a conversation with somebody about their experiences in the paranormal kind of world, and they were talking about what they've seen as kind of like these orbs and white lights. So when I bring it up, like, hey, I don't mean to say like you don't know where this is coming from or you're saying it's one thing but it means another, just that I had this experience today, and as you're telling me your experience of seeing this thing and how you interact with it and it's like there and it's gone and it's blah 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 blah, I'm just picturing me in the living room with my kids and that excitement and joy and all the energy that was created based off of that exchange. That exchange had everything to do with me dancing the light around the living room, me giving it distinct movements, me giving them something to chase, me giving them something to participate with. They don't know where it's coming from. So I just kind of offer that up as far as this like paranormal orb stuff goes. Maybe the point isn't where does it come from or what it is, but what it does to you and your body. He responded that's his favorite thing about the work that he does, is that he's getting to play with his friends. And everything else that comes out of it is cool and a bonus. But the primary love for what is being done is the fact that they get to do it with their buddies and share this joy and wonder together. And they are recording facts, figures, and exact information. They're following procedures and structures. And he's got a pretty good balance of both. You have the ability to credit, decide where you place your value, and credit accordingly.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Unravel with Allison. If you have any feedback, questions, want to chit-chat, or stay up to date on new releases, follow me on Instagram at Allison K. Steele. Let's keep in touch. Again, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next episode.